Hey, pro organizers, it's Melissa, and today we are talking to someone that has a very special corner of the organizing world. And she is happy to occupy her corner. She'll even say, I don't want your corner, I just want my own corner. But this is one of my favorite subjects in organizing. I actually offer this to clients, and I encourage other organizers to do so too, and that is photo organizing. As we all know, we have clients that are like, hey, I have this random VHS tape of my kid's sixth grade graduation, or 72 trillion photos from when I was growing up, or I have all of my family photos. Photos can really overwhelm a client, and there is a lot that goes into photo organizing. So, my guest today, Rachel Arbuckle of 2000 Paces, runs a photo organizing business, and we are talking about all of the things. So, I love offering this service to my clients. I got a scanner a few years ago and it paid for itself in about 2.5 minutes, but I'm not a full service operation. I really can just do photos. But for a lot of people, even just doing that, you're like, no thanks, not my jam. But if you want to add this to your services, I want you to know that there are resources out there that you can provide to your clients. And that is what Rachel does. So I am thrilled for you to hear all about photo organizing and all of the things today. If you have any questions about anything about this podcast or ideas for future podcasts, or just want to say hi, I am at hello@proorganizerstudio.com. I answer all of my emails directly, so it's really me. I would love to chat with you. And organizers, I'm just going to give you Rachel. I hope you have an awesome week. Okay, I get caught a lot because I always say, I'm so excited to talk to my guest today. And it's always factual. I am. I do not have people on my podcast that I'm like, I don't know. But
Right?
I am really excited to talk to you because you do something that I personally love and I think is important for organizers to have in their offerings, whether they do it themselves or outsource to a very good professional. But I get a lot of questions in our Inspired Organizer group about photo organizing.
Yeah.
So I am thrilled to talk to an expert. How are you, Rachel?
Listen, great. I'm excited to be here too. Your energy and everything that all of you do on your team is remarkable. And so I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we start really easily. Just give us your story. What's your
Okay.
organizing journey?
Yeah, I love to use the word journey. It's a great place to start because my company is called 2000 Paces Photo Organizing, and 2000 Paces in biblical times represented a day's journey. A day's journey was 2000 paces. And that's what we're trying to do is help capture and preserve our clients' journeys. Every journey is so unique. Everybody that walks in the door, very similar to residential organizing in the sense that you go into somebody's house and it's never going to be the same. There's some standard things. Most of the people keep their pots and pans in the kitchen, right? Things like that.
Most of them.
Most of
Sometimes.
them. I'm sure, and I'll have to hear that story sometime. But overall, everybody's journey is different, and so is mine. Very much like you, I worked in corporate America, kind of doing the grind. I personally wasn't terribly passionate about what I was doing, but I was good at it. I enjoyed it, and I was paid well. And then a fire forced our family to evacuate from our home. I lived in Southern California for many years, so being evacuated from a fire is not uncommon. But this one was particularly scary because it started 100 yards from our front door. And I truly thought that we were going to lose everything. We didn't. So just to kind of
There
plug
is a
that.
happy ending to the story.
Yeah. Just I always like to jump right to that before I pull on too many heartstrings unnecessarily. We had some smoke damage, but there were people in our community that lost everything, including their precious photos. And when I was standing at the bottom of the hill, although we grabbed our computers and a couple scrapbooks and some albums, we literally had minutes to get out. And even if you had everything organized in bins in a corner, I don't know that we would have had the time or the room with the animals and the family and everything to grab everything. And I would looked at my husband and I just said, we are going to lose everything from, I'm the memory keeper in our family. And I imagine you probably are too. I think organized
I am.
people often are, right? And those are the people that inherit, whether we want to or not, all the photos. And somehow our family thinks that we need to be in charge of that.
Yeah.
And I am that person in my very large family. So I was thinking about my grandfather's World War mementos and journals and our children's artwork and report cards and photos of my parents and their wedding. And I just thought, we're about to lose all of it. So I decided that I wanted to get them preserved. And when I started looking for a solution, I really didn't find one that met the needs that I had and was really like up to that level that I thought our photos deserved. So I created a solution.
I love that.
Yeah,
You saw a need and you go, "I've got it," which is
that's right.
fantastic. That's how all the great things happen, right? So
That's the idea. Yeah, absolutely.
so did you start right away? Did you just say like, "Hey, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm just gonna preserve my own things," and then you decided you had the real affinity for it, or how did you turn it into an actual business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish if I were independently wealthy, I would have been able to do that. But of course, it involved some planning. It was sitting down with my husband, and the idea too was, can I even make a business out of organizing people's photos? Even today, years later, when I tell people what I do and the company I founded, it's not uncommon to hear, you do that for a living? Is
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
business, right? You know what I
It's a
mean?
sentence yeah, it's a sentence I hear a lot. It's actually very offensive at this point, like, "People pay you money for that?" is my favorite
Right.
one.
Oh, I know. And I find that people are actually quite stunned when they come in our office and they see over 1,400 square feet of office space. And we have a full-time staff and we offer health insurance. And
That's
um,
awesome.
yeah, yeah. So we've really grown it into something, but it certainly didn't start that way. So conversations with my husband, looking at finances, deciding what I needed to do for my job. And so it took some time, obviously, and I kind of started researching it. And then I started working on my own photos. And as I was doing it, I was finding solutions. But I knew that I had to dig deep. I had to read a lot of blogs, listen to a lot of great podcasts, talk to a lot of people. I wish I'd known all of you when I was starting, because it sounds like
Yeah.
you would have really helped us out or helped me out, rather. And then I had to create a lot of solutions myself. I always tell people that because this industry of photo organizing is still so new, there really wasn't a blueprint. I kind of started with a piece of paper, and now, for example, we have over 300 pages of operating procedures. So it took a while. Once I decided to leave my corporate job, I was full board, but I did start out of my home and I had like 100 square foot office space and I consult and go to clients' homes. And then the next step was hiring an intern or a college student to help me out. And then in 2018, I got this office space. And really, that's when I think it turned into something that was very real. Like, wow, this is happening. This isn't a side gig.
Right. Oh, no,
It's
it's a
just
real
been
business.
right. It is.
If you have that big of an office space, it's a business.
So yeah, so that's what happened, and we're just trying to grow it from there.
Well,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what you do. Like, so if you have that big of an office space, I assume you have thousands and thousands and thousands of pictures and film, I assume film, DVD, all those things. Tell us about all the things that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I really pride myself on or this company on is that we provide sort of the full gamut of organizing services. So photo organizing services rather. We don't do any residential organizing. I
Yeah.
will leave that to all of you. But so print photo organizing, digital photo organizing, digitizing or scanning of prints, slides, negatives. We convert videos, so all the old VHS tapes, the mini
Yes.
DV, the high eight. Remember those?
Oh,
Camera.
yes. Every once in a
Oh,
while, a client will still have one of those in their home, and they're like, "What do I do with this?" And I'm like,
yeah,
I don't think there's probably not a
right.
lot for it right now."
Yeah, exactly. And we make photo books and we make online photo sites. So it's really the idea is that we want to take all of your photos in whatever format they're in, videos, whatever format they're in, and memorabilia in whatever format they're in, consolidate that all together, organize it, clean it up, add some tags and keywords, and then put it in a system that can be enjoyed and accessed and protected for years to come. So we have a process: consolidate, curate, clean up, and storage, right? So consolidate is taking all the things and putting them together. If I were to compare to many of your listeners who are residential organizers, you don't go into a garage and just start working on one shelf. You take everything out, you look at it, you evaluate it, and then you start grouping it, right? It's the same with photos. We take it out of the print out of the albums and envelopes. The digital, we're going to take from your iPhone, from Shutterfly, from CDs, thumb drives, memory cards, even floppy disks. You remember those?
Oh,
Um,
I do. I'm like, so one of the things I want to talk to you about is equipment because I'm just intrigued as to like, you are probably one of the only people in the world that still has a floppy disk
right.
reader, right?
We do have one. We do. It's
Yeah,
we rarely get them, but it's such a nostalgic thing. And it's rare
sure.
that there's any photos on it, but it's just fun. Once we consolidate everything into one place, we start the curation, which essentially means organizing it. So curating based on what your needs are, what the client's needs are. I always recommend I would say 95% of the time, we recommend that you organize chronologically. I could talk
Yeah,
more about that. And then the cleanup, right, is getting rid of the duplicates, getting rid of the ones we ordered in duplicate and triplicate on our digital phone or any digital photos where you thought, I don't know if I have these backed up. So you've copied them onto multiple drives.
yes,
Or even on with everybody using their phone, right? Let's get rid of the cat memes. Let's get rid of the pictures of the receipts and the fabric and the
yes.
accidental screenshot, right? And then all of that gets organized. The level of detail, of course, is dependent on what people want, but the typical is major holidays, milestone events, graduations, baptisms, bar mitzvahs, and then trips, a lot of trips, and then facial recognition. From there, that all goes onto an external hard drive or in addition onto an online photo site.
Mhm.
So I know that's a lot of information all at once.
No,
So I
it's a
know.
lot. Well, okay, so here's what I want to say. So I have some clients that I will do this for, like treasured clients that I love.
Mm,
And what you just described, like I'm just thinking of one client I've been working on, like basically a family history project for him, and
mm,
it's so many photos. So what you are describing is actually extremely complex. And
yes.
I'm working with someone one on one, and I'm like, hey, is this Aunt Esther? Or like, who is this? Right. Like, I'm just impressed that you're able to do this and do it well, because that what you are describing is a huge amount of work.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's really interesting. And there were times in the beginning that I thought, am I really taking this on? I went and I was on a panel recently for the San Diego NAPO chapter, and I was thrilled. The women that are in that group are just fantastic. Like you and I talked about before, organizers are just friendly and welcoming. And I just totally felt that spirit. And it was encouraging. But it was funny because I asked everybody who here has clients that have photos. And of course, every single person
Yeah.
raised their hand,
Right.
right? The next question was who here organizes their clients' photos? And not one person in the group raised their hand as something they offer as a service because it is very different and it is very unique. And it's the reason we can focus on that. But I also need to refer out for any garages and kitchens and
Yeah.
closets and all that because it's completely different.
Well, and I'm a big believer in, I mean, the reason that you're on the podcast today is I am a huge believer in we need to give people resources for things. And in the same way that organizers, I say, are a lot of our job is to be resource managers. Like my clients ask me all sorts of questions from do you have a handyman to do you have an electrician? I've been asked for some
Yeah.
weird referrals, right?
Okay.
But one of the things that comes up in our group, like I said, all the time is I have this client with all these photos and I don't have the interest in doing it myself. I don't want to just send it to some random place. And
Yeah.
so having someone that really, really cares about this deeply, like I think it's important to have resources for people to say, hey, I'm not going to be good at this because
Right.
a lot of organizers don't want to get into it or they don't have the ability to do it or don't see the path to the end.
Right. Well, and it just involves more. I'm sure that the residential organizers that want to include this in their business, I'm sure they could. I always suggest to either partner with a photo organizing company like ours or to get some training and do it yourself. But it's just taking on an entire additional business. And so it makes
Yeah.
sense. I think it's great when we can focus on what we're really good at. There's a reason that you go to a dentist, that you go to a prosthodontist if you need a crown, because that's their
Yeah.
specialty, right?
Right.
They're
Right.
not there to put braces on, and I don't think I'd want my prosthodontist to, right? And so anyway, I totally agree with you. It's great to know that we've got sort of a village to help our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So so let's say, do you just get a box, like a giant box of stuff, and they're just like, here you go? And then do you work with the clients one on one to say, how do you want this organized? Like, I'm just thinking about my client where we had to decide how does he want them organized? And he wanted about 112 different categories or whatever. So how does that work with you guys?
Yeah. So we do have a whole team and we've got some processes. So we have some standardization that we need to employ to make this work. But everything we do is customized based on what the goals are for the client. So step
Okay.
one is having the conversation. So that's one thing that I really pride myself on, is that I will have a phone consultation with everybody before they even move forward. It's a free consultation. Let's chat. What are your goals? Let's see if they align with what we can do for you. It's rare, but on occasion, I've had clients say, I want to do X. And I'll say, that's not really what we recommend. And so we might not be a great fit. That doesn't happen very often. What I want to do is provide that education. So I'll listen to what your goals are. And sometimes clients will say, they'll say, this is how I want it. And I'll say, well, have you thought about this?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure you've used that line before. And it's really because we are experts in our field. So an example would be, I had a husband wife that came in and she still bakes cookies for us to this day. She's amazing.
Oh,
Yeah. And she has 4 adult children. And she said, I want to organize the photos by each of these children. And I said, I love that idea. I love that you want each of your adult children so that they can pass that down to their kids, your grandkids, etc. I said, but the problem with that is after child 1, it's rare that you have children by themselves in the photos. So how do you decide, right, who gets what? And a lot of clients have this issue. And so my suggestion then was, let's organize everything chronologically. That's how we live our journey. So that's how the story should be told. But what
yeah.
we can do is add facial recognition. So each of the kids can go on this online photo site, right?
Yeah.
And type their name in or type multiple names in. And now all of a sudden, they have all the photos they want and can download. And so once she understood that there was a solution that would solve multiple problems, she and her husband were totally on board. And so, yes, they brought us all of their stuff. Often it's in multiple boxes. Sometimes we've gotten small collections. We do work on a lot of very large collections. We've had a client that I had to make 2 trips in my SUV to get all of her things. We had one client bring 17 suitcases of just photos and videos.
Okay, I can't lie, that stresses me out. There's not a
Right.
lot of
No,
there's not a
really?
lot that stresses me out. What you're describing is stressing me out a little bit.
Oh
That just seems
no.
like so, like, ginormous. Like, I'm just
Yeah.
happy that you do it because that just seems like a lot.
And I've had a lot of people say that they drop it off and they go, are you sure you want to take this project on?
Right.
And my team and I are truly excited. So
Yeah.
it's about just like you, when you go into a home or somebody that you coach goes into a home and they're like, ooh, kitchen, let's go for it. Whereas
Yeah,
I'm like,
right.
I don't want anything to do with it. To me, that causes me anxiety when I see the photos. But the difference and what really sets us apart is we have processes. There's a way that we go through and do this. So we gather family tree, we create online timelines. We've got techniques to help us identify years. And then I have one technique that I call bangs, broken bones, and braces. And
Okay.
that I know, what is that?
Oh, I'm excited to hear this.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I noticed that somebody cutting their hair, like getting bangs for a year, or the braces for a few years, or there was the
Yep.
broken bone, and there's a blue cast, and then there's a pink cast. Uh,
Right.
it's these little identifiers that actually help us do our detective work. So I tell
Okay.
people, organizers, sometimes we're therapists, and
Yeah.
sometimes detectives, right? So we've got these techniques that help us achieve the final goal as to the best of our ability. Obviously, if you don't know who this person is, we're not going to know who the person is, but we can at least categorize that into, all right, this is trips to the zoo or trips to SeaWorld and things like that. So at least now you've got some control over this collection and they're protected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you just reminded me of it now. She told it, she was on the podcast just a couple weeks ago. So if someone listened very carefully, they'll remember this story. But I had
Okay.
some, and she was talking about, she was helping a client with some photographs, just kind of put them in, they weren't digitizing, they were just putting them in chronological order. And she was helping her figure out what are the duplicates, all those things that
Right.
you've talked about. And she had one photo that she was like really staring at intently. And so my friend, the organizer, was like, "Oh, I bet this is like a really special picture." And she's like having memories and reminiscing.
Sure.
And she was like waiting for a story, and the woman's like, "I have no idea who these people are."
Yes.
And I was like, "Well, that
Yeah,
happens too sometimes."
it does. The interesting thing about that, and I love that because we see it all the time. We'll ask somebody, hey, you know who this is? And they're like, no, I have no idea. And to me, that brings up 2 ideas or 2 thoughts. One is it's okay to get rid of photos, right? Just like
Yes.
it's okay to get rid of
Thank
the
you.
stuff in the drawer, right? What was
I
that?
think that's a really important point because anybody, so if any organizers were like, even if you're just helping people get a collection together to then send to your company to kind of get them
Yeah,
together, it is okay. I think we feel especially badly about, I don't know who's in it, but I still can't throw it away.
yeah,
Just can't.
yeah.
It's a funny feeling.
I had a client that we converted all of her video in addition to her photos, but her videos as well. And when people bring, just like when you guys work on something, you consolidated it through purging, through organization. Same with photos, right? When we have this huge collection, somebody comes in with many, many boxes and they say, I don't want this back. And I say, well, give us a second to show you how great it can look in these organized archival boxes. And that
Right.
makes a difference. But I had a client that we converted a bunch of old home movies on various types of videotape. And she said, you know what? I don't think I want to keep those now that you've converted them. Um, she said, but I'll go ahead and take them. So she took them home with her and probably 9 months later came back, wasn't even expecting her to come back, came back to the door and said, I don't want to keep these, but I can't throw them out. Can you throw them out for me? And that's okay too. But I think giving permission to throw them out when the story it's not part of your story, even if you know the people and you go, well, these are kids I went to elementary school with and I remember hanging out with them, but they're not important in my life anymore. But on the other hand, and I don't want to say but because it's important to give everyone permission to purge. I would also say that it's important to take the step, if it's important to you, to talk to family members about these photos while you can. Unfortunately, there are so many clients that have come to us and said, I lost a parent, I lost an aunt, I lost a grandparent, and I inherited all these photos, and I don't know who these people are. And you still have permission to get rid of those. But if you have the opportunity to get that story while they're still here, I want to encourage people to do that. Even if you're not ready to organize, just show a picture, take your phone out, just put it on record and listen to the story because it's powerful to know that that story can be passed on.
It really is. I totally second that as like just thinking about this client of mine that I've done so much work with, and he's the one that I've done the most of this type with, but he's not my family, right? Like we are strangers.
Okay.
I know more about his family than a lot of people in his family. Like he has
Oh,
told me stories because I'm genuinely interested. Like
yeah.
his pictures went back to 1890. And so I'm like, tell me the story about this picture. Who are these people? That's my great grandfather. That's my great grandmother. And he has told me so many stories that I genuinely treasure, even though these people are not my family. And
Yeah.
so imagine if you did have those stories for your own family and writing that down. And that's where the magic is, not necessarily the physical picture itself, but
Right.
that's what the good feeling is.
It is. I mean, absolutely, you're right. And how great of you to take the time to listen because there's sometimes that we have clients that want to tell their story and
Yeah,
maybe they don't have anybody that'll listen. And so it's
sure.
great. Our photos do tell a story. And it's one of the things I've talked about with other people and other clients is we spend all this money to insure our home and our car and our jewelry and our art, but you can't insure your photo memories because they are irreplaceable. It's not possible to replace them. And they're so precious to us. You're absolutely right, Melissa. It's because of the stories
Yeah.
behind the photos.
Thinking about my mom's pictures that are from our childhood in the 80s that
Right.
are in those albums that had like the sticky backs and the plastic. Like one of the things too that I've seen with clients is sometimes their pictures are degrading because they're in these non-archival albums that like they're really starting to break down. And I think that's an important thing too, that there is a timing factor of some of this in terms of, hey, I know that seems like a project you can just put off and put off and put off, but if you want to preserve these or if you want to have all of these memories, it's pretty important to start finding these and making sure that the pictures are okay.
Melissa, you absolutely have your finger on the pulse of the industry because you're absolutely right. I think it's one of those things that I think most of us, I would venture to guess, I haven't pulled everybody in the world, but I would say most of us really want to protect and preserve these memories. And most of the people I talk to want to do that. And they think, I'll do that when I retire. I'll get to that eventually. And you're right. It's the photos could be degrading from the chemicals in those albums in the 80s. And I had a bunch of those when I started.
Yeah.
Or the heat, they're not,
Yeah.
are they in a climate controlled room? The heat, or you're in Minnesota, so it's the frigid cold.
Yep.
I hear it gets cold there a little bit.
Just a little bit, not this winter, but other winters.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Well, we've had hurricanes here in San Diego. So for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And so it used to be fires, and then we've had this flooding. And I have seen on the news people's photos and scrapbooks and albums are a mile down the road from their house. And they had no idea, because who would think a hurricane would come to San Diego?
Right.
And then there's things that are a little more close to home, like the loss of somebody close to us.
Mhm.
And sometimes, unfortunately, that happens very suddenly. And we've had people that are going to they want to throw a celebration of life, of course. And what do they want to do? They want to show photos remembering this person. And their photos are all over the place. And the last thing you want to do when you're dealing with the loss is to try and find these photos. Or, like you and I have just experienced, you and I both have freshmen in college. And
Yes.
last year, our daughters graduated from high school. It was great that I was able to type my daughter's name, and I typed the word school and professional, and all of her professional school photos came up. And I had this great banner up and felt like a rock star mom. And so there's times that it's good things, but there are things that come up, these milestone events. And you're absolutely right. I think taking the time, if we have the time and the patience and the energy to do it, or finding somebody that can work on it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, if you are listening to this and you are the mom of, I'll give you freshman in high school onward. Okay. If you're a mom of a
Right.
junior, extra listen up.
Right.
Do not sleep on the graduation party preparation, just photography. I'm not even talking about all the other stuff. The photography requirements and the
Yes.
archival requirements of a graduation party are significant. So please be prepared, because I
Yeah.
was, even
Oh
though I'm an
no.
organizer, I was not prepared. So
What do you feel comfortable sharing that?
oh, sure. Yeah. So her whole senior year, I was like, you know what? I really need to start getting these like photos because, with all of our photos, she was born, our kids at this point were born in the digital photo era. And
Right.
so all the photos are on a computer, and mine are decently well organized, right?
Yeah.
But they still weren't, I didn't have a Riley file. I just have
Yeah.
all, mine are all chronological. So then you have to pick out like, oh, the really cute baby ones, and then the really cute little kid ones, and where's her first day of kindergarten picture. It's a lot of work. Then you have to go get them printed out. Then so doing some of this work before you have to
Right.
be really critical. Don't be like me, you guys.
Oh, yeah. Listen, you were still steps ahead of many people having them
Totally.
chronological and organized. So we can only do what we can do. We are busy, as we're business owners, and we're moms, and we're wives, and we're daughters, and we're sisters, and we're friends, and we're all the things. We're caregivers. Women take on a lot. So I always say, forgive yourself. But if you have the means and the ability to get some help from somebody, I absolutely say do it. A couple, just because graduation's coming up, a couple fun ideas for any of your listeners that have a graduate coming up. Photo books are great, and there's different levels of organization you need for them. So I'll give you three quick ideas.
I love it.
So one is doing the first 18 years, right? So that's birth to 18 years, and just capturing the story of your child. So you give them a copy before they go off to college, and then you keep a copy for yourself, or maybe you keep that at home because you don't want
Oh
them to
yeah.
go to college. But just having that experience and being able to go through and have those memories, and it's amazing. And not just for the girls, but the boys too. They
Oh
might
yeah.
not admit it right away, but they love it, right? They
For
love it.
sure. Yes.
Yeah,
They won't tell you, but they think it's cool too.
they
Totally
will.
agree.
My son is older, he's 30. And so he has shared with me now how much he appreciates that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They do eventually tell you. So that's number one, but that does involve a little more energy and work, because that's 18 years of memories.
Sure.
Another option is ABCs. So an ABC book, it sounds, obviously you can do an ABC book for a child, but this is like N is for New York, or B is for basketball, or V is for volleyball,
Oh,
right?
I like that.
Yeah, so that gives you the opportunity to capture some of the photos from childhood through their teenage years without the stress of having to organize every single
Is
photo.
that first grade or second grade or
Right,
whatever? Yeah.
right. I mean,
That's
that,
awesome.
of course, I want people to get their photos organized and preserved, but
Yeah.
if you're looking for something quick, And then the third option, and we did this for our daughter, is to include letters. So what we
Oh,
did was we solicited or asked family and some of her friends to write letters to her, and then we digitized them. So it was in their handwriting. And then what we did is each 2-page spread in the book would have the letter along with photos with her brother who wrote a letter to her, or
I love
photos with
that.
me. Yeah. And so that's
Oh,
great because you can have friends send photos. And I will tell you, since my daughter, like yours, is in her second semester of school, she has told me on more than one occasion, Mom, I was feeling homesick. And I hope I don't get in trouble with her for this, but I was feeling homesick and I was able to open the book and look through the letters, and she felt encouraged and she felt that little connection to home. So,
for sure. No, that's a great I love that idea because those things are really, really the first year is hard for a lot of kids. And so being able to have some of those memories from home is really nice.
it is. It really
That's
is.
awesome. So what kind of people work for you? When you hire people to work for you, are they photography professionals? Are they organizers? Or are they just people that you think are great? Like tell me a little bit about the people that work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have 6 full-time employees, and I'm so honored. Trying to figure out what we need. It's always trying to find the best fit for them and for me. And because this isn't something like you can't go and get your, go to college for photo organizing, college for business and for accounting and landscape design. Nobody comes prepared and has experienced this before, rarely, maybe little bits and pieces of it. So what I'm always looking for, first of all, what we do, I think is so important. And I want to make sure that everybody on my team, I understand that everybody has to make a paycheck and everybody has to pay their bills, but I want somebody that's truly passionate about stories, about the story behind people's lives. And sometimes that is a photographer, but we've had people work here who have degrees in journalism, degrees
Okay.
in business, graphic design. Yeah, every one of my team members right now, although it's not required, but every one of them has a college degree. And I'm honored that they chose to work with me, to work with 2000 Paces. And so we do provide weeks of training. So we've created Google Classroom training to get them up to speed on our processes and techniques. And then we're constantly trying to update that because the reality is technology is changing all the time, but sometimes we'll get stuff from clients and I go, wow, I have never seen that before.
Yeah.
Let's figure out a solution. So we're always kind of being pushed to grow. We've done vision boards, we've done art projects, we do team building. I think because it also takes a lot. We're taking on the emotions sometimes of
Yeah.
these clients. And I also want people who are trustworthy.
Yeah.
Every one of our employees signs privacy agreements and NDAs. We have nobody working remote, and that's for a couple of reasons. One, I think the team environment is just so critical right now, particularly after COVID, with everybody kind of off in their own world. And I respect people that make that work, but I love the camaraderie we have and the conversations. But more than that, for our clients, I want them to know, and we work with clients all over the country. But when somebody ships us their stuff or uploads it online or drives it to us, we want them to know that it's going to stay here in our office, that it's not going to go anywhere else. Because it takes a lot of trust. Just like somebody inviting you into their home, it's a lot of trust to hand off decades of memories. And we want to
Yeah.
respect that. Yeah.
Well, and that's a really good point. I'm really glad you brought that up because one of the things that I have thought of a lot of when you think about sending like right now, by the way, you'll be getting some things from me because my client has a bunch of like 8
Great.
millimeter. I don't know what to do with any of it.
Right.
Like, well, I have a friend now. You just think about if you're sending this out to just some who knows who, right? Like that's why I wanted to have you on because I wanted people to know like you are a real person and
Yeah.
that,
For
it's
real.
a small yes, but that also you're a small business because there are a lot of places that do this kind of work, right? Like Costco does it, and but you just send it out and
Yeah.
it goes to who knows where, and I'm like, it feels vulnerable to just be
Yeah.
like, here are decades of my family's stuff. Good luck. Like, so, I mean, it just makes me feel good that you're like, "No, we really take this seriously and we take our jobs not just your job seriously, but that these are really important things for people."
I think that that is one thing that helps us stand out. And it's something that is really important to me is to have that relationship. No matter how much we've grown, started in my home, Now we have an office and we were only serving clients in San Diego. Then we extended to Orange County and LA. So all of Southern California and now all over the country. And it's really important that clients know who we are and that we get to know who the client is. So whenever a client's project comes in, they're assigned to a lead photo manager who's working on their project, and they get a weekly update every week via email on what's going on. And there are big box companies. In fact, I don't think Costco, I think they stopped digitizing and converting video.
Yeah, they might have, because I know they used to be able to take things into the store, and then they got rid of the photo processing center, and
Right.
then they thought they were doing it online, but I don't know. That was probably a
Yeah.
bad example. But there are big companies that do this, but you just feel like I'm just sending it into the ether.
That's right. And I get it because they're sort of, if I may, the big box companies, they can afford to provide it to you for probably more cost effective, but it's what are you getting and what's the comfort level? So I don't want to, I think that for the right person, if they feel comfortable sending that off and they just want to get everything scanned and preserved, I say more power to you. I think people should do what they feel is in their comfort zone. What I like is that you are providing your photos and giving us an opportunity to organize them in a really meaningful way. What I've found is we've actually had a number of clients that have hired us after they've gone to those types of companies, right? I know this, you're shaking
Yeah.
your head, it sounds familiar.
Well,
Yeah.
because Costco is not gonna, or like wherever is not going
Yeah,
to be like, oh,
sure.
this photo is from 1975 and it's in the 1990s. They're just mass digitizing them. And then you're going to get back a soup
Right.
of digital files,
That's right. You're
which then is
exactly
going to be
right.
harder to organize.
Right. And that's what happens. And then we get this collection of digital files. And I explain, listen, we can do this, but it's going to take longer. And so I encourage people, if you want to do something like that, it's better to invest the time and resources initially. But just getting it done is really important. But you're absolutely right. They scan it. I have two goals, two main goals for our clients. One, because I was prompted to start this business after the fear of losing everything. My first goal is always preserving and protecting the photos, right? So getting them digitized, converting the videos, backing up all the digital files, that kind of thing is critical. But number two is let's organize them in a way you can actually enjoy them, right? And so those big companies were taking care of problem one, which is great. But then problem two is I've got Melissa's family one, Melissa's family two. That's not going to do you any good. What I want you to be able to do is type the word lake or camping or soccer and find all the photos you need.
Well, and that I meant to say that earlier when you were talking about the keywords or the tags that you're putting on them too. That's
Yeah.
major because I know like for all of it, everybody now just has thousands of photos. And so having that simple tag, sometimes your phone does it for you, but a lot of times it doesn't. And then obviously photos that you're digitizing definitely don't have tags. It's cool that you guys are able to do that. And then it makes it easier for the client afterward.
Absolutely. And there are like it for everybody that has an iPhone, sometimes people say, well, look, I've got faces and I can type up dog and you can absolutely,
Sure.
but it's only in that proprietary software. If you're not
Right.
in an Apple connected software, you're not gonna be able to export that and see it. Um, and to me, one of the things that I learned about my own photos is I did not ever want them to be held hostage. There was a time where Walgreens said, if you want to get your photos back, you need to pay us. These are people that
Oh,
just uploaded them. Shutterfly in March of last year actually got rid of all their shared sites. So if you had photos on the shared site, they're gone. And I want to have, and I love Apple. We've got Macs in the office. I've got Apple Watch, iPad, all the things. But what we do is organize it, embedding the keywords in the actual photos. And we use what I like to call a native file system. So we put that directly onto an external hard drive. And whether you use a PC or a Mac, you're not dependent on any program or software. Do I know if in 50 years that's going to work? I'm sure we'll just like touch our glasses and our photos will pop up and we'll be prepared for that. But
you'll start a different business to deal with
that's
what happens in 50 years, right?
that's
Like that's
right.
a problem for future you.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Really, I think that's what a company like ours provides that makes it different from some of the bigger box companies
Sure.
is that it is personable and it is customized and it is specific to what your needs are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about all the different formats that you guys do. Like when you said floppy disk, I was just laughing a little bit.
Yeah.
What are all of the formats that you're able to take in for people?
Yeah. So on the print side, of course, any size print photo, we have traditional auto-fed scanners, right? Where you put the photo through and you feed it. And that's going to be for most of the 8 by 10 and smaller photos that are not delicate. But we also use a camera scanning rig. And I'm really proud of that. It's got an arm so we can lift it up and down, so we can scan scrapbooks, for example.
Yeah.
There were years that creative memories was a big thing. And we've got,
Yes.
right? I know you come across some, maybe. And so there's a lot of love and money that went into those scrapbooks,
Yes.
right? And the last thing somebody wants us to do is take them apart. So we can scan the entire thing. We also had a client that had her grandparents, she found these love letters they'd written back
Yes.
from World War II on like airmail, right? Really delicate. We don't want to feed that through something. So we camera scan it. And we had a client, her mom was a nurse in, I think, the 1930s. And she had this nurse's cap, and we were able to scan that. So she had a copy of it, and then we put it in archival tissue and things like that.
That's
Um,
so cool.
it's very cool. So any kind of print, any size, memorabilia. So we've done children's artwork and report cards, ship manifests, any genealogy stuff. And then we can also do 35 millimeter negatives, or really any negatives. Sometimes people have much larger, but 35 millimeters, that traditional strip, right, that people used to
Yeah.
get with their photos. Slides. We do a lot of slides. For a long time, slides were really popular. So that's kind of on the print side. And then on the digital side, any place you can have it. But the most common are your computer, whether it's a desktop or a laptop, external hard drives, CDs and DVDs. Sometimes people say, hey, I want to scan all my photos and put them on a CD and DVD. And I say, let's rethink that. It's outdated software. And the truth is, you can get one scratch on that and it's gone. So
Yeah.
converting all of those, transferring the data off of those is really critical. Then what about thumb drives? Those little flash drives that
Yeah.
are in the junk drawers, and you get those because you did a zip lining trip in Hawaii. The memory cards that used to be in cameras, that's another big one. The floppy disks, as you said, old phones and iPads, although many of those are connected to online sites. And then there's all the online sites. Apple Photos is a big one, Verizon Photos, Google Photos for people that have places like Shutterfly and Snapfish. We can download photos from there. Dropbox is a big
Yeah.
one. A lot of people have stored photos in Dropbox. So any of those online sites. So what we do is, again, kind of depends on the goals of the client, but the ideal thing is to consolidate everything you have. And so taking a second to think about, where have I put all those photos over the years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
So
that's a big one. Again, just talking about my client that I've been working with. I've been joking. We're like, how, where are you hiding more pictures? Because he has a very
right.
large house. But I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, at some point you have to run out of pictures. Like the other
Right.
day we found more, and I'm like, how can there still be more? But sometimes they're in a ton of different places, or maybe you want to gather them from your mom's house or your aunt's house or whatever. Like just getting them all together is sometimes the hardest part of the process.
It really is. And that's why consolidate is always the first. Consolidating them all together, it is a challenge. And I love that you've had I love and hate for you that you've had the experience of
Yeah.
there's more, there's more. I can't tell you how many times we've worked on a client project and they'll drop things off or ship
Yeah.
it to us. And they say, I think that's it. And I go, you know what? It's probably not it.
It's not.
No
Yeah.
matter how organized you are, you inevitably find another thumb drive or a box, or like you said, your cousin will come by and drop photos off. And sometimes people say to me, will it ever end? And they seem so overwhelmed by that. And I have two thoughts. One is, eventually we'll get to a place where you've got this foundation and you've got this structure that at least you feel it's okay if there's a few not in a collection. And I think that's where that grace comes in as women, that we have to say it's okay. But I think if we get the majority of the photos, the majority of the collection, that's something to be really proud of. But the other thing to remember is, it shouldn't ever end, because if we're not making memories, what's the alternative? If
Yeah.
you're not making memories, you're probably not taking photos of them, and then you're not living. So I think it's wonderful that we continue to do that. And it just means that you need to grab a lifeline and ask for some help sometimes. And that's
Yeah.
okay too. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and the other thing too is this is not really going to the specific topic we're talking about. I'm going a little more broadly here, but
Great.
there's also a big thing where I read a very eloquent article. I'm not going to be able to remember where it was, but it was a few years ago, and it was about a mom who said, I just never really felt good about myself, so I never was in pictures. I was always taking the pictures.
Yeah.
And, like, now I don't have a lot of pictures of me with my kids at all of these different times, or and it doesn't even have to be a mom with kids. It could just be I'm not in a lot of pictures, and then you lose that opportunity too. So, this is totally off the subject of photo organizing, but, like, also just be in some pictures because you're going to want them. You really
Yes.
are.
I feel like that's really important. You're absolutely right. And we probably read the same article because I remember reading
Yeah.
something about that and it was really profound. And I do tell moms that. And it kind of makes me sad when we're creating a photo book and for the last 18 years or 25 years or whatever it is. And I go, gosh, there's not a lot of photos of you. And you've got tons of photos of your kids. And of course we want to do that. They're
Sure.
adorable. And sometimes we as women get self-conscious or simply don't have the time to take photos of
Yeah.
ourselves. But
Right.
I agree with you. Whether you love it or not, your kids will appreciate it. And it's good to look back at your journey, you
It
know?
totally is. Yes.
Yeah. And remember
Um,
why you don't have that hairstyle anymore.
yeah,
That's okay.
right. Remember when you thought that the bangs were a good idea? They
Right,
weren't.
right, right, right. And that's okay too. So,
I have told my mom that the next time that they drive to visit us, I'm like, I want you to bring all the photo albums because I want to digitize them like for myself. And
yes,
I'm going to be honest with you, one of the main reasons is because I tell my kids quite a bit how big my hair was in the 80s and
yes,
90s. And I don't think they fully believe me because they haven't really seen the pictures because I really don't have them. My mom does. And so
right.
like it's very fun. Like who told me that getting a perm was a good idea? It was a terrible idea,
Such a
but we
bad
did it.
idea. We did. We did. And the Aquanet, right? The
Oh my gosh,
knotting of the hair. Yeah.
Rave level 4 was my personal favorite, but
Oh,
Aquanet was also very excellent.
right, right. No, it's true. And it's those are the things that I think at the time maybe we thought was we were embarrassed by it, just like our
Yeah,
teenagers are embarrassed now. But the
yes,
reality, they're really gonna appreciate that stuff someday. And I would appreciate it. I wish that I had taken more photos with my children and they're few and far between. And we can't do anything about that, but you can do something about it today.
totally. Well, the other
Yeah.
thing that you just made me think of too is, our children. So teenagers could also use this service because their phones are insane.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
their
They don't have a problem
photography.
taking a photo of themselves though.
No, no, they don't. The problem may be, do you really need 75 selfies from
Right.
May 12th,
Yeah.
2014? So,
No,
but
yeah.
it could just be the kind of thing that, when your kid is going off to college or whatever, this could also be a gift for them of like, hey, we're going to organize all your photos. We're going to do like your own. Because the pictures I have of my kids are one thing, and that is one part of their journey. It's not their full journey with their friends.
Right.
So when I think about that, I'm like, oh, they have a whole other journey that's going on their phone.
Yeah.
And all of the people in your family have their own journey going on. So like, I could just see this going like so many directions. It's just really cool.
Absolutely. And I will say, so we have worked with moms who have teenagers, and the teenagers are like, "Oh no, you are
Oh,
not
you're not touching my phone, girl.
not touching my phone." And so what I recommend, and it obviously I everybody should parent the way they want to, but if they want to just kind of not push that button right now, I always say, let's just make sure that it's backed up. So
Yeah.
just have a backup and you can tell. So with my daughter, I say, okay, we set up a backup for her. I don't know the password. I mean, she sends me photos and I include those and it's great, but let's create something so that at least it's backed up so that someday you can access them and share them and enjoy them. So at
Totally.
least take that step.
Yeah. Or just take the pictures off the phone that you really love, put that in a file, and then you can send it out. Like there are a lot of things
Yeah.
with them, but it's
Yeah.
just I'm thinking about that the whole journey word. There are a lot of different people that have a lot of different parts of your story from your life.
You're
So
absolutely right. And I always compare photo organizing to a puzzle, like a
yeah,
traditional
oh, for
jigsaw
sure.
puzzle. Right. And I love puzzles personally because it's trying to figure stuff out and it's the detective work and it's just kind of how my brain works with sorting and organizing. But just like a puzzle, you don't just dump all the pieces out and go for it. You think about it, you come up with a plan like we do for organizing. Typically, most people would do the outside of the puzzle. I don't understand people that don't start with the outside, but starting with the framework and starting with the structure. And then we take these pieces based on color or based on size or based on shape and start working on it. But sometimes there are pieces missing or we think they're missing and we have to wait to get to that point. And that's kind of the same journey for photo organizing. And you're absolutely right. Having each of our kids' photos and our parents' photos, that's all part of that puzzle. but we can see the entire story when we have most of the pieces in. And that's what we need to appreciate, not the ones that are missing.
Yeah, I love that. It's absolutely perfect.
Ultimately, I just want people to get their photos organized and preserved. So whether you work with a professional, whether you work with me or another professional, there are wonderful photo organizers all over the country. Many of them are my friends. You can go to thephotomanagers.com. I'm very confident in what we provide, so I have no problem sharing that. And if you find somebody you really connect with, go for it. But just take the step, start consolidating, and just take little bites. You don't have to get it done all at once, but I would start working on it now.
Well, and like I said, I just think that we need to have good resources for our clients and also some of these stories to go like, here's why you want to think about this. Because I do think it's an easy thing to put off. And you had a major crisis. Thankfully, it turned out okay for you. But I used to tell my kids when they were little, they don't call them on purposes, they call them accidents. Things happen, right? Like
I love
nobody
that.
anticipates their house is going to burn down. No one anticipates these things are going to happen. And so do it before it's an emergency. And I feel the same way about organizing. What you said about, I want you to find someone you connect with. Like, we just want people to get organized, however that happens, whether you use a professional organizer or not. But it's great to know that people like you are out there and that you have someone that really, really cares about this as much as we do as organizers. So I love it.
Absolutely.
You're in
Absolutely.
your own important little corner of organizing that
Yes. Yeah, and
everybody
nobody wants to come into our corner apparently. That's
nobody,
okay.
your corner is all yours, girl.
Yeah.
You can have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. And that's quite all right. We're perfectly content. So,
Well, tell us a little bit about how people can get more information if they want to talk about whether it's large scale services with you or just kind of one-off things. How can people get in touch?
the easiest way is to go to our website. So we're 2000paces.com so you can get some information. There's before and after photos of some projects, and we've got a bunch of blogs and things like that. But at the very top, there's a button for a free consultation, and you can just book it at a day and time that works for you. Our phone number's there too. Some people like to actually pick up the phone and give us a call, and that's
Not
great.
me, but other
No,
people do.
most people don't. No, most people don't, but that's available. And then, of course, I'm always available via email. It's just Rachel, Rachel at 2000paces.com. And I love answering questions and meeting new people. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, the people that listen to this podcast are lovely human beings. And so I think that you will enjoy the people that come to you from here. And I totally agree with you. I mean, I just have a warm fuzzy. I know that just because I like it doesn't mean everybody else is going to like it. I love looking through clients' photos. It's like seriously something that makes me happy. And I just love, I mean, some of the photos are hilarious and some of them are, it's fun to see shirts from the 70s and it's
yeah,
fun to see pictures from the early 1900s. I don't know. I totally love it. So I'm actually jealous of the work that you do because I bet you see some really cool stuff. And it's just nice to know that you're doing something really nice for families. So I love it.
thank you. I appreciate you give us an opportunity to share it. This has been a
Really.
blast. So much.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
Well, get out those photos from your clients or maybe from yourself. Send them to California, send them on a little journey.
we're ready. That's right. A whole nother journey.
That's right, exactly. Well, thank you for being with us today. It was nice to meet you.
Melissa, you too. I appreciate it.